distinguished delegates, and our esteemed speakers. May I please request to play the session AV.
Session 5.
Welcome once again to this gathering of intellect and insight. I now request Mr. Sanjeev Patni, Head of AIC Prestige, and our session chair, Mr. Savan Ladda, Founder CEO of Worky, to escort our esteemed guest speakers, Mr. Amey Mashelkar, Head of JioGenNext Reliance, and Mr. Jatin Vahane, world's youngest rocket scientist, scientific advisor, Orbitics India Aerospace Private Limited, to the dais. It is with great consideration that I emphasize the significance of this upcoming session for the aspiring entrepreneurs and the dynamic young individuals among us. Your attentive engagement is highly encouraged and appreciated. You will learn the secret of building a successful startup today. I now request Mr. Hitesh Bindal, co-founder and director, Swastik Coal Corporation, to welcome Mr. Amey Mashelkar with plant sapling.
Acquired by RIL. Amey has driven more than 50 proof-of-concept commercial engagements between startups and RIL across industries. Prior to leading JioGenNext, Amey was an analyst at GenNext Ventures, a rupees 1,000 crore, that is $120 million corporate venture fund sponsored by RIL, and part of a team that designed and deployed internal innovation programs at RIL. Amey has been named one of the top 10 leaders of India in corporate innovation. Amey has served on the jury of London Business School's Entrepreneurship Edge program and NASSCOM Product Conclave's Emerge 50 Awards. He has also been an angel investor in 10 startups. Prior to RIL, Amey worked at Vishnet and Microsoft 1999 to 2005 in program management and business development roles. Amey holds an executive MBA in general management from Asian Institute of Management, Manila 2004-05 and a bachelor's in economics from Delhi University 1996 to 1999. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Amey Mashelkar.
The conclave is all yours. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you a
So first of all, it's really hard to go after some astounding poetry, but I'm going to, still try and make it as interesting as possible. Startups is obviously a very interesting topic in the country today. And, last night, or rather early in the morning, I landed in Indore, and as I was coming, I was astounded to see, the cleanliness in the city. So it's just really, really amazing to see how emerging Indore is, or is probably emerged already. But I was just looking at some statistics on Indore as far as the startup ecosystem is concerned. And there are some data points that I came across. The first is that there are almost 730 technology startups here. And I'm not counting, sort of the other startups that have come. I don't know if this number is accurate, but it's pretty interesting that 730 deep tech startups are right here in Indore. There are 6,000 plus angel investors in the city who can invest in multiple startups. In fact, at JioGenNext, and there was a bit of an introduction about the program, we have a couple of startups right here, that are based in Indore. I think, it's really remarkable in terms of the advantages that this city provides, quality of life, obviously less traffic that all of us are suffering from nowadays, top educational institutions like IIMs and IITs, also a lot of great talent out here as a result of great institutions, and of course affordability and lower cost of living. So I think one has to start thinking differently about the startup ecosystem and really see how we can sort of look at cities like Indore and really evangelize the city and try and get as many tech startups to move here as much as possible. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, and based on my personal experience of working with founders, advising them, investing in them, and also looking at the ecosystem over the last 15, 16 years, what are some of the changes that I've noticed. And I wanted to crystallize all that in some key messages that I want to leave with you, especially if you're going to start a startup. There are a lot of students out here as well, or you could be working somewhere and thinking of doing a startup. And I wanted to really bring it down to kind of the first 30 days plan that you should have. Oftentimes the way we start is by thinking about, okay, what is the problem that I want to solve based on my experience or based on my observations, and who can join me in this journey. And then we go about starting to work on that problem and building a product. And then we bring that product into the market. And then once it's in the market, we pivot, we change, we keep growing, right? And sometimes what happens is that we get caught in a process where it really is no longer in our control. You raise capital, you raise more capital than you need, you don't know where to spend that capital, you grow ineffectively, and there's a lot of indigestion that happens essentially because of a wrong start to your startup. So I think the first thing is that, I want to say that you have to find the right mentors and advisors, and I think incubators like Dr. Patni's incubator, AIC out here, which is doing an incredible job in incubating and mentoring tech startups. I think you have to find platforms like these where you can get a good start. But I just want to come back to the 30 days plan, right? And I think if you look at India and if you look at people who are doing startups, they are no longer just family business owners, right? I mean, these are middle class working professionals who have big ambitions, big ideas, and who want to do startups, right? These are professionals who want to become founders. And specifically for that audience, I feel that getting the core values and culture in place first is really, really important. So I believe that, as a founder, as a founding member of a startup, you have to bring a team together that is excited about doing a startup, first of all. Because not a lot of people are, excited off the bat. I mean, they're still kind of, nervous. They don't know too much risk, this, that, and the other. So I don't think that you should focus on prior education experience, but just the fact that the people that you're going to spend the next 10, 15 years with, are they excited about doing a startup, right? Are they excited about solving that pain point? And that's really important. The second thing is that, do you have shared goals in life, right? A lot of us have personal liabilities, obligations, responsibilities. We have accountability towards our family, our ecosystem. And are we willing to, I'm not saying set that aside, but are we willing to account for it? And do we still have some shared goals between us as a team when we want to get started? So I feel that in the first 30 days, you have to really sit with your co-founders and talk about everything, right? Who you are, where you come from, what your experience has been, including how much money you want to make, how much money is going to be enough for you, right? Because a lot of times founders don't talk about these things because they're shy. I mean, like I said, some of us from middle class families growing up, our parents were working somewhere in the government or in the private sector. There was never any conversation about money at the dinner table, right? Money came magically from somewhere and went magically somewhere else, right? But we never kind of, understood how money worked for a lot of us. So I think talking about money is really important with your co-founders. That if I want to make $50 million, right, over the life of this startup, is a good thing to say to yourself, is a good thing to say to your co-founders, to see the reaction. Are they on the same page, right? The second thing is, apart from money, what is the impact that you want to make when you do a startup, right? Because not everything is about money. Money is a byproduct. But what is it, how are you planning to impact the lives of people around you, your customers, your stakeholders? And quantifying that impact is really important. And how close is that to your core value system, right? Are you going to create an impact in an industry which you're uncomfortable about? Or do you see some shared values that you have seen, experienced growing up? Do you share those same values, right? So I think discussing money and sort of non-money value system is really important when you're getting started. You need to also talk about the 10-15 year game plan, and things change, and things change every 6 months, especially in technology. So you need to have some short-term goals that you can be focused on, but you need to have a long-term strategy that this is the flip I want to bring in this industry. This is the small change I want to bring here, right? If you look at the view, and we have Jatin out here who's a space scientist, the youngest space scientist, so if you have a look at our planet from the top, right? Imagine going into space and looking at a planet. You are a tiny speck on this planet, and what is the difference you want to create being a tiny speck on this planet? And how much time do you want to give that journey is something that you need to really introspect about. So zoom out a little bit, think about the next 10, 15 years. Think about short-term goals, think about long-term strategy. Think about the impact that you want to create. Talk about stakeholders. How do I want to treat my customer? Does my customer have a board seat in my boardroom? Talk about investors. How do I want to treat my investors? Right? Are investors people that you take money from and forget? Are investors people that you take money from and return that money to? Are investors that you become friends with? What is the relationship that you want to develop with your investors? And this has to be talked about freely, right? Explore each other's minds on your key stakeholders, your investors, your customers, and how you want to treat your employees, right? What are are they going to have the same shared values as you, right? Or are you going to hire people only for their intelligence, right? Because culture is everything when you're starting off. Talk, like I said, openly about your goals, each other's financial goals. Also talk about if there are liabilities that you want to take care of, and at what point it won't be feasible for you to continue should those liabilities take the front seat, right? Also, I feel that, when founders come together, not everybody is from a family business. Like I said, working professionals, you probably work with each other, you're all friends. But what if you all are not friends? You all met somewhere, you all know each other briefly, right? Talk to each other's families as well, talk to each other's close friends, understand who influences each other, right, in the core team. Who are your big influences in life, right? Build a personal financial forecast as well and discuss it with others. This is really important to, take it out of the system, take it out of the way before you start building your startup. Once all this is done, you've sowed the seeds of your culture, of your company culture. Now you have a strong foundation, right? And based on the strong foundation, now you can make changes as you move along, because there will be changes. Every 6 months, there will be changes. In some cases, there are changes every few weeks, right? So these are the seeds of culture that you sow very early in your organization. Use the incubator like Dr. Patni's to sow these seeds, to build the right foundation based on first principles. Build the right culture, shared values, core values, understand each other, all of that stuff. The next key thing to understand is your market. A lot of founders have found will start building a product not understanding, having a zoomed out view of the entire market. And when you think about the market, reimagine how your contribution to this market is going to change it, right? Figure out how much of that market you will be able to take. One thing that I don't see founders doing is trying to understand what is the growth rate in that market. Has that market been growing, or is it stagnant, or is it shrinking, right? They believe that because they have a great technology, that market is going to change and it's only going to go up. But honestly, it doesn't work that way. So you need to see if there are tailwinds that this market has, which can propel that market forward, right? If there are new regulatory policies, if there are changing market dynamics, entry of new players that is growing the pie, what is it specifically that is giving this market some tailwind, and how big is this? Is it interesting enough for me to spend the next 10 to 15 years in? And trust me, you don't need to have experience in that market to start a business in that market. But you need to understand it. Take 6 months to do your study. Let it be secondary research, talk to people, do interviews, write down your thoughts about the market, understand it fully, right? Live your customer's life, your potential customer's life. Before you write even a single line of code, I believe that you should go out there and really understand your market. Also try and understand what can go wrong in that market. As we are seeing more recently how regulation plays a big role in changing the dynamics of the industry that we operate in, right? So what are the different risks and what are the unforeseen factors that you need to take a note of? And that's extremely important. Sometimes founders get into a very exciting space, but they only later on figure out that the biggest player in that market is only a small player whose probably revenue is a few hundred crores, let's say, right? If you want to raise capital, you cannot go with a market that is that small. So understand the category leader and how much revenue they are making and over how much period of time. Because if they made only few hundred crores over the last 20 years, which means they're not growing for some fundamental reason, their participation in the market hasn't been meaningful. They are the category leader, obviously they've done something right. But why are they not growing? So try and understand all those underlying factors. I think it's really important to prove in India, if you're in India, and then look at exporting outside. I don't personally support the idea of flipping your company to overseas. I think India offers a fantastic opportunity now for even enterprise startups. Lastly, I would say that, look at how unorganized the market is and how much of the unorganized market, how much is that as a percentage of the total market. So if that unorganized part is really big, then you have a good opportunity out there, right? And that opportunity is to bring in technology, training and talent to fundamentally transform that market. So having said all of these things, I just want to move to the last aspect that you should do in the first 30 days. I believe that artificial intelligence, and there were some sessions out here on AI, I believe, is a technology that is going to be in everything that we do tomorrow. And you have to fundamentally reimagine how AI is going to disrupt the very market that you're operating in. And every market is going to get disrupted by this technology. So I'll give you an example. Our current cohort at JioGenNext has a startup that has built an AI recruiter. This AI recruiter basically goes and sources candidates from across the web, the internet. It is integrated into 1,000+ job portals around the world. It matches the candidates with the skill sets that the employer is looking for. And if the rating and the match is 99%, then it contacts the candidate automatically. Once it contacts the candidate, it calendars a meeting. The candidate comes on the video and the bot actually conducts the interview. The bot summarizes the call, gives a rating to the candidate. After that is done, the bot makes the recommendation to the employer on behalf of which it is working. And if the employer approves, it even extends an offer to the candidate and sends all the requisite material to the candidate for joining, and then cross-checks if the candidate that was interviewed on video is the same candidate that is joining the organization. Now you can imagine in this entire flow of this AI recruiter, there is no human element. It is entirely the bot that is doing 100% of the work. Now, will it replace the talent recruiters? No, because this has to be used as a co-pilot. 100% automation can only work in this situation only if the job is fairly standard, there is a high churn rate, and you have to recruit in volumes. But if it is specialized, it is at a senior level, etc., there is obviously the human instinct that is involved. But this is a great co-pilot that can sit with you and understand the candidate and do most of your gada mazuri, right? So I feel that companies like this are reimagining what AI can do for that industry, right? Honestly, I don't know the category leader in HR in terms of how much money they're making, but if a technology like this comes, can the market become bigger? Growing the pie, right? Rather than taking a share of the pie. I think ultimately with AI, we have to find the man-machine balance. It can't be this or that. But there's certainly something that you can do if you're thinking of starting an AI startup. Think about reskilling and upskilling. Do it as CSR. The customer's stakeholder whose job you will be disrupting in some sense, you have to take that person and see what else that person can do in life that can give that person more money and can be better at doing something else. And I believe that if every AI company takes that responsibility, I think we'll have a balanced situation overall. Lastly, I just want to say a little bit about JioGenNext, because that's the organization I represent. We are a corporate accelerator program. We have something called Market Access Program, where we become an early customer for early stage tech startups. We test your product to the hilt. In India, if you survive our proof of concept and pilot, you can go and sell confidently to any customer in the world. We take about 10 to 15 startups every year in our cohort. The application form is live on JioGenNext.com. If any of you are building in any of the areas listed on the website, happy to hear from you. Of course, I'll be around to meet you as well. And lastly, I would just say that I think the ecosystem has really matured over the last 15 years, and we are going to see more and more entrepreneurs who come with very deep understanding of what they're building and why they're building it. A lot of the youngsters that I meet, they're very clear-headed about what they're doing, and that's an encouraging sign. I hope more of it happens in Indore. I'm beginning to love the city, and hopefully JioGenNext will also have some presence out here in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amey, for the insightful presentation. I would now request Mr. Savan Ladda to please summarize the session quickly.
Thank you, Subodh. Actually, we wanted to do a Q&A, but we are short of time, so I'll simply summarize the session. Thank you so much, Amey, for sharing your valuable thoughts at the start of a startup. It is indeed very important to have clarity related to core values, culture, impact, market, risk. Likely it is rightly said, uncertainty can lead to disappointment, but with clarity comes conviction. It is indeed the lack of clarity that creates chaos and frustration. Jatin, we really enjoyed listening to you, your passion for space. I'm sure it has inspired our audience to follow their dreams, and your ek tarfa pyar also. So every great team begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Thank you everyone, being so awesome. See you tomorrow. And thanks for staying back till 6 o'clock. I think it's 6 o'clock now. Thank you.
Thank you, Savan. I now request Mrs. Purvi Jain, Head Marketing, Avi Oils and Food, to present the memento to Mr. Amey Mashelkar. I also request Mr. Anil Jaiswal, Head HR Piramal Pharma Limited, to present a memento to Mr.